Hello everybody, it's Tracey, the Sustainable Host. I'm really excited today to be talking to the wonderful Nikki Domeney. Hello Nikki, how are you?
Hello Tracey, thank you, what a lovely welcome.
Now, we spoke, would have been a week ago now, and I think I had a really enlightening conversation from my point of view. How about you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was. I walked away from it was over an hour and a half, I think, in the end, and my cup felt full.
That's fantastic. So, just for the viewers and our podcast crew, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Nikki.
Yeah. Okay. So I am a director of a business called H2O People and Culture. I have been self-employed for 17 years. I started my career in as a law clerk, and then moved my way into becoming a leader in a law firm. And I guess at that point, I started my career as a feminine leader in the workplace. And I realised now that I had quite a bit of talent around, I guess, supporting people's individual journeys as well as building teams and teams that were thriving, making sure people were aligned. And then over the years, my business name has changed. So 2019, my business name became H2O People and Culture. And it was basically, the change was reflecting the growth that I'd done with myself, my vision, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more, but also around my values and who I want to align myself with. So the H2O People and Culture, sort of had reference to being in flow. And so I do career and transition coaching for individuals. And then I work with businesses to really create a healthy ethos around culture and developing leaders. And it's been fine-tuned over the last couple of years as the climate has changed. Workplaces have changed, which I'm pretty excited about. Yeah, I think did that answer that?
Yeah, it does. Nikki, how would you say workplaces have actually changed in the last couple of years? Because it's really interesting that you should say that, because I've noticed some changes, but for others, not so much. So give us your opinion.
Yes. So I was noticing this shift. I mean, I was, as I said, I've been self-employed for 17 years, and a majority of that has actually been working remotely and online and, at home or overseas, a whole lot of different, locations. And, I remember reviewing policies where, my client would have me come in and do the people and culture piece. And then the policy, the flexible work policy would read something like, it's an entitlement, it's a privilege to work from home. And I remember saying to them back then, I think we need to change the language because the landscape is definitely changing. And then, of course, COVID hit, and then we saw what really, what could happen when we gave that flexibility. And, obviously, I think there's no one that has been through this experience and had some what we call challenging things happen as a result. But mostly I feel like there's that flexibility. And then I also think that we've got more focus on, and this is, I think, just because the generations that are coming, and I've come from corporate and yet realise that the generations that are coming with us now are looking more for purpose. And I too, I mean, that's why I went into business on my own, is because I actually realised that I greater purpose than sort of sitting in a corporate structure. So whilst I support those in corporate, I do feel that there is a shift in terms of how businesses are learning to run, and that it's less about the profit and more about the people. And then if they get the people piece right and leadership is there, amazing things happen. And so, and then as a result, I've tend to align myself, because I've done all the work around my vision and mission and values, to align myself with people that are really getting that and needing some support around really harnessing that. And that's where I see the shift. I can see some amazing things where businesses, leaders are realising and wanting to work on really what's our purpose, what are we here for, and how do we attract the people that and then putting them in the right places so that everybody thrives. So it's got a community feel.
Yeah. It's like we're moving towards what I perceive as a more sustainable business and life balance.
Absolutely. And I think reflecting on, I guess one of the questions around how I got into sustainability, I know we're probably going to get to that. And I was reflecting upon that, and I just realised it's because a lot of the work that I did was around, my inner work around that, and where my energy should be, and realising that the businesses needed the support to have that happen, to help them shift the models, because a lot of people have been conditioned into that.
Yes.
And so working on yourself from a sustainable energy, I'm talking physical energy, I'm talking mental energy, I'm talking, making sure you're aligned with the right people. It starts from the individual first, and then it expands to, teams and then organisations.
Absolutely. I've always found that when you work with the right people with the right mindset, it seems to actually energize us as individuals. And then if we're energized as individuals, then we can put something into our business life.
Absolutely. So a lot of the practice I do is in coaching, and even just in businesses, is what does well-being look like, and to integrate what that looks like, so that extends to, and it is mindset. A lot of the work that we do is around the mindset and consciously choosing every day things like meditation, things like physical activity. Creativity is something that I guess, I feel like there's a shift again, or certainly in the world that I'm operating now, people actually are understanding that creativity should be part of any organisation, because that's where ideas come from, and exploration, and less fear around failing and more around celebrating, the growth, I guess, and that's the mindset stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. So to you, what is sustainability? I mean, we've talked about this in length before, but I'd like you to sort of summarize for us what you think sustainability is.
Yeah. Again, I think it comes down to a couple of things. It's obviously global. Well, I think it's obvious, but it's a global conversation we're having. Yet I think in the work that I do, what I realise is that often it does start with self. So going back to sustainable, to me, it's what's sustainable for you and your best life, and how are you going to start with that? Because if you can get that bit right, and I see sometimes what there's still happening out there is, and we've got a reactive mindset to things. And what my practice is to support people and working out when to react and when to respond. And sometimes the response is the better, which means reflecting and then coming back, because that response is actually going to be a bit more, it will be in the long run, mostly, that is, a much better sustainable outcome for the business. Certainly from a vision and value aspect, making sure people are making decisions on a day-to-day basis around what is aligned with their vision and value, so they stay on course, because energy, people get burnt out, all those things. So there's that. And then, of course, there's the larger scale. Like, we're doing it in our households, we're doing it in our communities, we're doing it as a larger community. I'm loving, being in working quite a lot in that space with clients who are on their journey. Some of them are in their sustainable energy solution journey for 16 years, and some of them are beginning. But yeah, just that I guess global consciousness around the choices we're making. For me, I've definitely always, clothing is a really important for me. It's an expression. However, I have always, and now as I've gotten more aligned and understand, I'm making more conscious decisions around where I'm buying the clothing from, recycling, upcycling. The dress that I'm wearing now is a re-engineered shirt. There's little things that we can do in everyday life that just represents sustainability. And I think for me, and I'm probably going, it's on topic but off a little, is that I think where the attention can really go with sustainability is on the focus for the solutions. And I know there is a need for activists out there. You and I have spoken about this, and there needs to be a voice about what's not working out there. Yet I think when I think about energy and sustainable energy, I think there's a lot of opportunity where we can direct that attention into the efforts in finding the solutions and being part of the voice around what's available to be part of the solution.
It's almost like we need a whole pile of quiet voices to become one big voice.
Yeah.
Sustainability, because there's a lot of people out there like you and I that want to do the best that we possibly can do, not just for our families, but for our planet, because the planet is not doing well at the moment. And I can see that there's going to have to be a major shift, and it's got to come from the grassroots, because business can't do it all, governments can't do it all. It's got to all start with us, doesn't it?
That's right. And then just sort of where do we want to put our attention? For me, I guess as I said, I started off in law environment, and then organically what happened was I started to make the shift towards wanting to work in businesses that were innovative and thinking about the solutions for these, not, sustainable solutions. And when I say there's creativity as well, like I sort of think sustainability is around making sure, because we are creative. We all are, as far as I'm concerned, here to create. And the more that we can get that aligned, the more that we have capacity. And I think the other thing that you're touching on, like, it's community, but it is that global. I mean, I think you and I spoke about this in our last chat, but I've been finding some amazing alignments with people all over the world with the same vision, and that is to really come together and be part of the positive change for ourselves, our family, for Mother Earth, greater community.
Quiet activism.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
And I think those sort of things are often drowned out by what I call the large activists. So the ones that get out there and they picket and they tell everybody that we've got to change everything, and it's a almost repellent methodology, I think, to the normal human being. So we don't want to be like that. We want to do, and we want to feel like that, but within ourselves and not impacting on others.
Yeah. I think to that point, as I said, I feel like the voice of an activist is very, very powerful. Yet what I do know with all the work that I've done is often we place so much emphasis on the fear aspect, and that's actually what gets us stuck. Like, you think in any environment, or you get into fight flight, and it actually stops the flow of trying to find the solution. So as much as I think that getting people's attention, sometimes you just need to say it really, really loud. There are lots of other ways that that can be produced in a more harmonized way. Because again, if I think of the human condition, we can't sit in that angry state forever, and so there's a fine line, I think. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think it's how people hear. Some people hear by being knocked on the head, but it's very few.
Yes.
But the rest of us actually need to hear in a different way, and we need to adjust our communication styles to actually be able to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. So the work that I do, I use a profile tool called Advanced Insights, and we look at that. We look at different communication styles and our values and all of those things, so that we can start to actually hear what the audience is seeking, if that makes sense. So what is your audience needing? Because as you said, it's that old disciplinary way. It's I've often said this in my coaching, when someone's sort of being challenged with bullying or being accused of the bullying, and they don't even realize it, because they've got a particular tone that we've been conditioned to that says you must be, the only way I'm going to get your attention is to scare you. And as you said, it's just so counterintuitive, because all we're doing is getting stuck in the fear of it. So a lot of people, mental health is a big thing at the moment. A lot of it is the climate stuff is very, especially for the younger generation, where they're feeling that they've got this, huge responsibility on their shoulders to correct it.
I agree. It almost shuts us down to possible solutions. We're not solution focused then, and we need to focus on the solution rather than the problem.
Absolutely, yeah. So the problem needs to be surfaced, and I think then it's what we do with our energy to actually, put it in a way that we're actually part of the solution.
Do you think there's enough focus by government and by corporations on those solutions? Are they really looking at it, or are they looking at how to get more shareholders, and those shareholders then are they focused on it? I mean, it seems to be still, in my opinion, a lot of focus on the bottom line, which is leading to a ton of greenwashing.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing because, as I said, I've sat in this space, sustainable energy. I've had clients that I've been working with for 16 years that are like pioneers in this area. I say pioneers, it's probably, I know there's people beyond that before, I think you spoke about it. It's always been your thing, right? Or one of your mates. And I've spoke to another gentleman late last year, that same thing. He's still in the space, but he's evolved, and he was just brave enough every time. His parents, said, go to uni to study this. But when he looks back at he was brave enough to say, if I go down that road, I'm not going to be able to make the influence. And so in every decision he's made, and he's worked in so many different industries, he's able to be the voice and the part of the solution. And so I think there's a bit of a bridge needing to be built around some of those corporates and some of those businesses, that are saying they're doing the right thing, because that feels like the right thing to say. Some of them just need the support around how they achieve it, really. And I've worked with amazing people who are consultants in, wanting to do that. And then there's the ones that are out there, it's their mission. They're very clear it's their mission. Yeah. So I can see a shift, and I'm a bit of an optimist, and I just think that there's, like anything, there's those businesses are going, yep, all right, this seems to be a thing that we need to focus on. Yet they don't necessarily know how to be totally authentic with how they do. The government, well, yeah, that's an interesting, that's probably a podcast for another time. But yeah, look, I always say politicians, like, recently someone suggested that I would make a good politician, and I just sort of go, the reason that I don't know that I would is because I think that my message would get mixed up, because you then start playing, it doesn't come about the numbers. It's because it's, that's one of the orientations of politics, right, of getting so many votes and things, that I think that it's probably not where I'm going to put my energy. So I don't know whether I answered that. I was probably speaking like a politician there. I danced around that.
Oh, look, there's just so much rhetoric out there. I did a blog this week on plastics in the world, as opposed to, in Australia, we only recycle 14% of our plastics, which is just not good enough in my mind. And in places like France, they're starting to look at, they're taxing people who use plastics. Do you think that there is a need for legislation sometimes to monitor activities?
Yes, and I wouldn't be surprised if that actually happens. And then when you think about how governments are actually able to, support, I'd certainly be working towards, if a politician said that, I'd be like, you've got my vote.
My vote, yeah.
Because I do think, again, we need, this is where the voice of the activist, or the voice of someone saying, do you know the stats on this? Do you really know what the stats are? And then we need to be able to start. I mean, again, I'd like to think that just by bringing it to people's consciousness, that we are going to be able to, the facts are important, and then getting the message out is important.
Yep. And
then it's a matter of making sure that we do have rules around it. For instance, I heard that they're actually thinking about bringing in a law around the amount of fashion, things you buy. Yes. That'll be interesting. To police. Yeah. But look at, even just last week, I went to drop off some of my clothing to a secondhand place to resell. and then I look up the street, and I'm in a local area that's, I think, very progressive. There's and there's several shops that are doing something similar like that. So I was really enlightened by that.
Yeah. I had a conversation some time ago now, probably a year and a half, with a friend of mine who's very, very knowledgeable around nature and about how to do sustainability, but in that bigger perspective of agri-food. But she said to me, to be honest, it's really hard to do it in the home. It's very difficult to do it in the home. And so I think this focus on the individual needs to come about again to show people that it's not hard to do, that it can be done, and you just need to be shown the path.
Absolutely, because I do think that a majority of people want to do the right thing. And even when I go into some of the sustainable energy companies, a lot of them are not completely educated in all things. So, and I guess, back to how you and I connected, when I saw that you'd written a book about this, and certainly my focus is to have that in my home and for my children. I've invested in a water machine that's actually all around, making sure that we can avoid having chemicals, reduce plastic, so we don't have to have plastic at all. So anyway, I think going back to that, your book around how having people just have basic steps, step by step, because I can overthink it. Even just today, I was at my son's parent-teacher interview, and I had it was a recycled coffee cup, and I was like, oh, hang on, is that really recycle? Am I, so there's even those little things that get really confusing.
It's almost like we need sustainability literacy to be embedded into the education system.
Absolutely. And I will say, having children just local to me is a wonderful farm called Ceres, and they've been educating in that area. I remember going to a excursion with my daughter, who's now 21, with Lucas and the baby Bjorn, and we were there and they were educating, and now they're like, that in itself has become a fantastic institution, a community place for people to do the veggie gardens and it's exciting times. I think it's just as you said, there needs to be some big attention on it with a collective, and it's growing, I believe.
And I'm hoping we could be part of that solution, Nikki.
Well, that's why I connected with you. I saw that what you did with this book, and then I jumped on LinkedIn and saw that you were a change, you saw yourself as a change maker. And I know that sometimes takes bravery, because I know that I've literally just done the same thing. It's like, okay, I can only work with people that are aligned with my vision and values. I've got to practice what I teach here, And so I certainly feel that these little alignments are coming, and that I do think that there's lots. You've already done it. Like you shared and I've been talking about you since I've met you about the little tiny houses, and what you've done in terms of helping farmers bring in other income while they're they're not being necessarily supported with their fruit, or the crops aren't growing or whatever, or even just this week I was on site with one of my sustainable energy companies, and we were talking about visions and values and what the certain, shopping centres are doing, and how they cut the supplier out, and that, and it's not community when you're doing that. They saying and all the things, but they certainly need some support in making sure that their behaviour is reflecting that they're saying. And then you see the other little, community shops that are, or those little gardens that are coming up, fresh produce markets, all of those things. Yeah,
it's one of the things that I think that I have such a lot of respect for farmers, because they have to go through so much to get that crop out. And in Australia in particular, our climate doesn't support cropping. Yes. And in Western Australia, it's worse than everywhere else in Australia. So our soil types aren't great. It's difficult because we're often in drought. And so those guys have got to do that initially and survive. And then afterwards, they've also got to take on the Coles and the Woolworths and people who buy off them, who are also trying to screw them down. And then from there, they have to take on the consumer, because if it's not perfect, we don't buy it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not a great way for us to behave to the people that are the makers of our food.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We should be, I mean, it's funny you should say that, because my father's side came from farming, you know, cherry and apple in Tassie. And my uncle, who only just really sold it, the family farm recently, gosh, the skills that were involved and the effort and the work that goes in, and yeah, just climate has so much impact on that as well. So yeah, I mean,
it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard life. It really is. So anything that I could do to actually help them along is the only way I think we should be behaving, not going into this horrible rhetoric of farmers are just gouging. And you know, that old time sort of view that farmers actually drive Range Rovers and they're rich. That time was over many, many, many years ago.
Yeah,
it is.
So certainly if they're using, and this is where you came in, right? So that's where my entrepreneur brain kicks in as well. Certainly when that's all you're relying on, you know, and you have to get money smart and think about how you're going to create sustainable income when you're relying on so many different variables outside of your control.
Absolutely. And that comes back to our conversation that we had before about this mindset. What are your views on your journey of creating that new mindset that you have now?
Yeah, so, and you nailed it. It's a journey. I feel that I've come from a bit of survive. You know, I've had some hurdles like most of us have to overcome, and then I entered this space. This is actually kind of on point because, you know, as you know, Tracey, yesterday I turned 50, and I'm pretty excited about this as a milestone, because the growth that I've done in terms of my mindset and the work that I do with my clients is all around supporting that transition, and it's absolutely 80% mindset, 20% action, and I now see myself as a contributor. So I've moved from, you know, not just thriving, but also going, all right, how can I help other people thrive? And that is definitely around, you know, mindset. I you know, gratitude, you know, doing the work around who you're spending time with. So really making sure that you're finding people that are aligned with where you want to create.
Yep.
You know, so absolutely mindset is a huge contributing factor in, certainly in the way that I am as an individual, how I parent, you know, my children, you know, explore their own mindset. Even just now coming back from Lucas's parent teachers interview, he was like, my son, yeah, and just sort of even just trying to feel like I'm influencing the mindset of the system of the teachers and what they're seeing. And yeah, again, feel like that's part of what I'm here to do, is help people with their mindset. Absolutely. I think I answered that for you, but
yes.
Yeah, it's very important.
How do you think it's possible to influence others to change their mindset?
Well, the thing is, you can't change someone. They've got to want to do that themselves. So yeah, and I kind of know you know that. And I think what I've learned is people are on their own path and their own journey, and it happens when it happens for them, and sometimes it may not. So I think for me, it's more around, I feel what I'm doing is educating.
Yeah.
So when I'm thinking in any areas that I work in, like if I was in the people and culture doing, you know, wanting to shift the culture, it would be just educating them. So for instance, last week I sent some material to this amazing company who really have a vision to create a healthy place, and it starts with leadership. So I'm going to educate you on what's best practice, and I'm going to help you. I can't do it for you, but I will be here to guide you, and equally, trust and things like that. So did I answer that? I think I did.
I think you did too. Well, it is so easy to get lost in this kind of field, isn't it? Because mindset's so important, and then you've got to be changing mindsets. How do you change mindsets? You're right, you can't change someone's mind if they're not ready to be changed. I feel though at the moment we're at a juncture where people want to change. They do want that change.
They honestly do. A majority of people absolutely do. They just don't know what steps to take.
That's right.
And what I say to people is it just takes one little step in the right direction. And in fact, I just said that in parent teachers interview, but it's a conversation in everyday life that I'm having. And me too. You're the same. Like, you've built a success in so many areas in your life and business from what you shared with me that didn't happen overnight. But it was just like, if you know that's what you want to do and you go with intention, anything's possible.
Yeah. It could be evidenced at the moment by quiet quitting that's happening with the younger generation when they go to their workplaces and then they find that their values aren't aligned.
Oh, yeah. So it's interesting that you should say that, because I'm a bit of an advocate for the student that comes out of year 12 and needs the gap year.
Yes.
Because I often am coaching people that have not done that and haven't got their values right. They then go on to have a career where they haven't worked that out. I'd like to think there's a shift in that. But again, that came up in conversation today in parent teachers interview. But that's part of my work, is to help people really understand that, because often you'll go to an interview, if you don't know that stuff about yourself, what ends up happening is you feel like you're selling yourself opposed to advocating for yourself. And the more that I don't think it's an age thing. I think that, like, my children have, I would say, strong self-awareness, because I've even today I was coaching the teachers around how to get the best out of, and it's more about getting them to inquire and develop that self-awareness around what's important to them and being able to create a space to articulate it. And if we can do that, that's part of the change I think we're making.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Nikki. Look, I think we're going to have to wrap it up there for this particular podcast. I'd love to talk to you again. This is Tracey, the Sustainable Host, with Nikki Domeney. Thanks, Nikki, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Tracey. See you soon.